Okay, today before you start your assignment, we're going to go through how to factor polynomials. There's basically several ways that you can end up factoring polynomials, but it's always the same steps. So the first step that you're going to have to go through each and every time is to check and see if there's something that factors out of each term. This is a term. This is another term, and another one, and finally the last one. So first you're going to check the numbers in front, or the coefficients. Is there anything that goes into 3, 6, 24, and 36? You should know that 3 goes into each one of those. Then you're going to check the variable. This is x to the fifth, which is the same as x times x times x times x times x. So you have 5 x's, right? That's 4 x's, and 3, and 2. So there's 2 x's that are in each of those. So we can factor out an x squared. Now it's 3x squared times, then what would be left if you factored out a 3x squared? The 3 would be gone because it's 3 divided by 3. And you would be left with 3 x's. If I took 2 of them out, there would be 3 left. So it would be x to the third. Then 6 divided by 3 is 2. If I took 2 x's out of there, there would be 2 left. 24 divided by 3 is 8. If I took 2 x's out, there would be 1 left. And then 36 divided by 3 is 12. And there wouldn't be any x's left because I took both of them out. And that's all there is for this question. Can't simplify it anymore. Can't pull anything else out of it. If you could pull something out of it, then you know that you didn't take enough out for this first term. So whatever you would pull out of it, say there was a 2 here, if you could pull a 2 out of all those terms, then this would just become 6x squared in the front. But you would just divide by 2 for each of the terms. Second type is called a difference of 2 squares. This is whenever we have like a 9x squared minus 25y squared. Now, notice it has to be a minus in here. It's called difference for a reason. It's a subtraction problem. You're only going to use difference of 2 squares when this is a squared and this is a squared. Now, in some cases, you won't have a y squared back here at all. It'll just be 9x squared minus 25. But if there is a y there, it has to be squared. And then each of the numbers has to be a perfect square too. 3 squared is 9, and 5 squared is 25. So it has to be something that's a perfect square. Now we can factor this out. And so it's what multiplies to give you 9x squared, which has got to be a perfect square, which is 3x and 3x. Then you do a plus and a minus, and that's going to be the case every time for a difference of 2 squares. It's going to be a plus and a minus. Then what squared gives you 25? It has to be a 5. So it's plus 5, minus 5, and then y times y gives you y squared. So your answer would be 3x plus 5y and 3x minus 5y. And that's how we do difference of 2 squares. Then you have sum of 2 cubes. For sum of 2 cubes, again, you have to check and see, are we looking at cubed terms? That's an x cubed and a y cubed. So your variables are cubed. What about the exponents? 8 and 27. Well, 2 cubed gives me 8, so that is 1. And 3 cubed gives me 27. So now I factor. This would really be 2 cubed x cubed plus 3 cubed y cubed. And that's if we're relating it to these terms. So this would be 2x plus 3y. It's just whatever you would have to cube to get 8. Whatever you would have to cube to get x cubed. So it would be 2 cubed gives you 8, and x cubed gives you, or x cubed gives you x cubed. Then you would have whatever your a term is squared. So that would be 4, because 2 squared is 4, x squared minus, and then it's your a times b. So it'd be 2x times 3y, which will give you 6xy. And then your last term would be 3 squared, which is 9. So there's going to be a plus in there too. Plus 9y squared. Now from here, this takes us into a different type of factoring. So we have 2x plus 3y. I'm going to make this a little neater. Plus 9y squared. Now we have to see what we can multiply together anytime it's a binomial, which means, or a trinomial, which means you have 3 terms. This one, this one, and this one, and they're squareds. Then you have to figure out what you can multiply to give you this front number. And that would be 2x and 2x. Then what multiplies give you 9y squared? That could be a plus 3 and a plus 3, plus 3y, and a plus 3y, or it could be a minus 3y and a minus 3y. The only way to tell is to look at this middle term. That's a minus 6xy, right? So since that's a minus, this has to be a minus. Okay, when you look at these terms, you now have to decide whether this was factorable at all. Is this times this plus this times this equal to negative 6xy? When you do this, this inside one is negative 6xy, and this one is negative 6xy. So that would give us a total of minus 12xy in the middle. Since that's not the case, then you know you can't break it down any further, and you had to stop here. Now the nice thing about the keystones, which I know most of you don't think there is a nice thing about the keystones, but the nice thing about the keystones is that it's multiple choice. So you can decide whether you have to go further or not based on whether this is in the answer choices. Okay? Difference of 2 cubes. Kind of the same thing. The only difference is this is going to be a minus here instead of a plus, and a minus here instead of a plus, or a plus here instead of a minus. So you just flip where your plus and minus are. But x cubed, so that gives you that a is really x, and b cubed, it gives you that b is really 4. And now it's x minus 4 times x squared plus 4x plus b squared, which is 16. Now, can anything multiply? Once again, you got a trinomial here. Can anything multiply to give you 16 and add up to 4? Well, 4 times 4 gives you 16. That 4 plus 4 is 8, not 4. 8 times 2 is 16. But 8 plus 2 is 10, not 4. And so we really can't break this down any further. All right? Now this is an example of one that actually will break down. And so we set up two parentheses for it. We set it equal to 0. Now, x times x gives us x squared. Now, what multiplies to give you 48 and adds to, well, what multiplies to give you a negative 48 and would add together to give you negative 14? So I can first look at the factors of 48. I know 1 and 48. I know 2 and 24. I know 3 and 16, maybe? Yeah, 3 times 16. I know 4 and 12. I know 6 and 8. And that's it. Now this has to add together to give you a negative 48. Or multiply together to give you a negative 48. I think I messed up. This should be a plus. That's better. So it's got to multiply to give you a plus 48. And give you a minus 14x. So it's going to be a minus 6 and a minus 8. If this number in the back is a plus, and this one here is a minus, then you know that it has to be a minus and a minus here. And then to figure this out, I would just add these two together. 1 plus 8 is, or 1 plus 48 is 49. That would have given me 26. That would have been 19. That would be 16. And that one's 14. Now, sometimes they'll ask you, like, they'll say, like, if the root was 8, positive 8, then which could be a factor? And so you're not done yet here because it's set equal to 0. If it wasn't set equal to 0 and it was just this part of it, x squared minus 14x plus 48, then that would give you this is an answer without this equals 0 here. And you would be done. But it does say equals 0. And because it does say that, we break each of these factors down. X minus 6 equals 0, and x minus 8 equals 0. Then you just solve for x. X equals 6, and x equals 8. And so if it was asking you what would be a factor if the roots were 6 and 8, then you would say x minus 6 and x minus 8. Sometimes it will only be looking for one of them. But that's the way you do it. Okay? Now, if you look at this one, this should be a factorable question too. Start with the fact that there's a 3 in each one of these. So don't forget, even if you think, oh, looks like an easy one, you have to factor out in the beginning. It's going to leave me with x squared minus 4x minus 5. Now, if this is a minus and this is a minus, then you know that you're going to end up with a plus and a minus. Oops. It should just be an x. And what multiplies to give you negative 5 and adds up to negative 4? Well, we know only 1 and 5 go into 5. So those have to be our factors if it's going to work. If this is a minus, then make sure your bigger factor goes with the minus. Now let's check to see if it worked. Negative 5 times x gives you negative 5x positive 1 plus, or positive 1 times x gives you a positive x. Negative 5x plus 1x gives you negative 4x. But we're technically still not done. It's going to be 3 equals 0, and that's never true, so that's not going to be one of your answers. But it's x plus 1 equals 0, and x minus 5 equals 0. So this becomes x equals negative 1, and x equals 5. All right. That is it. You'll now get your worksheet, and you can try to do it. Good luck.